Okay, we're continuing with the book here, Prevent and Reverse AFib and CHF by me, Pete Rogers. We're on page 71 in the book. The paper here, we're talking about congestive heart failure, is from the Mayo Clinic. They had a whole bunch of women who had hysterectomies with a follow-up of almost about 22 years. Over 2,000 women that underwent hysterectomy. And here's where it gets interesting. The women who had a hysterectomy before 35 years of age had a markedly increased incidence of hyperlipidemia, hypertension, obesity, cardiac arrhythmia, coronary artery disease, and the big one is congestive heart failure. 4.6 times increased risk of congestive heart failure, 2.5 times increased risk of coronary artery disease. That's bad, okay? And I don't think women are very aware of that from what I've seen. All right, let's scroll down. Yeah, so there it is, 4.6 times increased incidence of congestive heart failure. I can also tell you when I look at demented brains, like if I get a demented female brain and she's less than 60, I always check the usual suspects. Is she an alcoholic? Is she a drug addict? Did she have major head trauma? Okay, stuff like that. And it's, if it's not one of those things, it's usually she had a hysterectomy before she's 35 years of age. Because when a woman bleeds with menstruation, that lowers her hematocrit, which lowers her blood viscosity. It means her blood gets less thick. Why do we have a blood pressure? To pump blood to the top of our brain, our cerebral cortex. You have to pump that blood against gravity. Well, if the blood is thick because you have a higher hematocrit, that's the main thing that determines thickness of blood, then you need to pump at a higher pressure to get that blood up to your brain. If it's, high-fat diet makes the blood thick, high-sodium diet vasoconstricts, narrows the vessels you're pumping through. All those things will increase blood pressure. Chronic hypertension's most common reason for small strokes in the brain, like for periventricular flare hyperintensities, meaning small vessel atherosclerotic ischemic disease, meaning a lack of blood flow to the brain. And it's a double screw job because if you overtreat it with pills too strong, you drop the pressure too low, then you hypoperfuse the brain. So you're not going to win either way. The only way you're going to win is eat a low-fat vegan diet, okay? So anyways, that's a big statement. And, you see this a lot in black women, okay? A lot of black women have a lot of fibroids, and then they go for hysterectomies for their fibroids. Nobody tells them that now they're predisposed to markedly increased risk of hypertension. And so they get this chronic hypertension. And because women tend to ignore cardiovascular disease, because, premenopausal women don't tend to have a problem with it. It's uncommon, very, very, very uncommon for a premenopausal woman to have a myocardial infarction, a heart attack. So because they're oblivious to it, all of a sudden they show up with strokes when they're about 50 or 60 years of age. And like I said, I've seen them show up demented. Okay. All right, so the next thing here is, basically your blood should normally be like pumping water, but when it's real thick due to high hematocrits or high-fat diets, and it's like pumping a milkshake. Pressure has to go up. Okay, I'm going to show you an interesting paper here. This guy is Martin Pall, P-A-L-L. He wrote this kind of massive paper, the no-oh-no cycle as the central cause of heart failure. And he goes through all these oxidative stress mechanisms that become self-reinforcing in a vicious cycle. And he sort of is saying, look at all this stuff I found. What a screw job mess. Once this stuff gets going, the patient's toast. There's nothing you can do because these vicious cycles keep on worsening each other, and just cardiac muscle cell function is screwed. The patient's going to crash and burn and die. That's what he's basically saying. But Martin Pall, I actually think the guy's a genius. He's real kind of Asperger autistic. You can watch his videos. Just type his name in the browser. You'll find him. But where did I think he screwed up? He didn't screw up. I just think he doesn't know nutrition. He'll talk a little bit about, the Mediterranean diet apparently is a good diet. No, Mediterranean diet's BS. And I say that because we just showed you a couple case reports from Ostfeld, the cardiologist from New York, Montefiore Hospital, and also from Baxter Montgomery, a pretty famous cardiologist. They both published their case reports of reversing congestive heart failure with a low-fat vegan diet. And, of course, Kempner was doing that, and others had seen that as well. So anyways, I read this paper. It's like 55 pages. We're not going to get into it. But the bottom line is you're not going to win the game from inside the cell, fighting the oxidative stress that way. The way you're going to win the game is improve tissue perfusion, improve tissue oxygenation, avoid mitochondria inhibitors, avoid EMF, other things that contribute to making it worse. Okay, but just be aware of that once things get going, this whole no is a nitric oxide peroxynitrite cycle of congestive heart failure. I made videos about it. If you want to see my videos on the Martin Pauls paper, I sort of started out with a picture like of a castle under siege, okay, and then low-fat vegan is the only way to escape from that. All right, so that's it for today. Hope you found that helpful.